This is Noah Newman here in Milford Hills, Wisconsin. Welcome to Conservation Ag Update. Pull! Conservation Ag Update is brought to you by BioTill Cover Crops. That was a great time at the NAEDA Clay Shoot. Really good event, raising money for ag scholarships. Welcome to the show. We haven't had a crop progress report in several weeks because of the ongoing government shutdown, but it sounds like most of you are probably close to the finish line with harvest. Now, it's never too early to start thinking about next year and how to make improvements. So let's kick off the show with 7 harvest tips from no-till innovator Marion.
One of the things I do with a pickup truck is drive behind the combine, and I want to see what's coming out of the straw chopper. If you see a lot of yellow, that means the corn head's breaking off a lot of stalks, or we got our stripper plates too tight, or something's wrong. But I would prefer to see a red tint out the straw chopper than a yellow tint. That tells me I'm just mainly sending whole cobs out the back end of the combine. So to recap here, stripper plate gap, measure the girth of the stalk, and make sure that you never get the stripper plates tighter than the diameter of the stalk. I like finely chopped corn stalks. They decompose fast. They return nutrients. Earthworms love them. And the other thing about finely chopped stalks is that if I'm in a corn-soybean rotation, when I come back to push the platform down the field, cutting my no-till beans, the residue's all chopped up, and it flows through the header late at night when it starts getting damp. On a red combine, we can adjust the transport vanes. They're in the fast position for beans, slow position for corn. On a green combine, I can't really regulate that. Concave clearance, I'm just looking to see if I've got a couple kernels on a cob. That's how I adjust. The rotor speed is all about cracks, and the fan speed is about the amount of leaves that are in the grain tank. And the sieve settings, I tell you, run the bottom one wide open.
Marion will dive deeper into his keys to success during one of his presentations at the upcoming National No-Tillage Conference. Head to no-tillconference.com for more information. Well, meanwhile, in Watertown, Wisconsin, Tony Pyrick's been reaping the benefits of planting green into living cover crops for several years now, and Tony says he didn't even really have to make that many adjustments to his planter to make it work.
As I say, my planter's behind here. We just got, but we don't even need the no-till coulters anymore. A lot of people think they got to have a special planter, and it's not necessarily. We've got a farmer in our soil health group, and that is a 4-row. He's a 4-row wide, an older John Deere planter, and he's no-till now for quite a few years. Just go slow and add a little extra weight, and a lot of times it'll go in the ground, and you don't have to spend a lot of extra money for this no-till stuff. Once your soil changes and your structure changes in your soil, it'll be a lot more easier to penetrate it and get it in the ground. But there's not a big cost. Nowadays, all these planters are pretty well set up for a downforce pressure, which you need to push the unit in the ground. So we're getting into the time frame now, and where a lot of these planters are capable. There's very few of these old planters that didn't go in much. And like I say, Al's Chalmers way back in the 80s made a no-till planter. I think it could have been actually in the 70s they started, so there's some around. But no, there's not a lot to get. You can get involved with this, and it works.
Tony says it's amazing how much NPK cereal rye gives back when it decomposes, but since it's such a big consumer of nitrogen when it's alive, he applies about 20 gallons of 28 or 32 with his planter just to make sure the corn has enough in to get off to a good start. Now let's send it out to McCain Vogel for a special West Coast edition of the Cover Crop Connection on the road at FIRA USA.
Thanks, Noah. Well, autonomy is always one of the biggest topics talked about here at FIRA USA. Earlier, there was a panel where the topic of cover crops came up in terms of autonomy, and let's take a listen on why it might be important to just pay a little more attention to cover crops when you're dealing with AI or autonomous farm equipment.
Some of the challenges we typically run into are really around how these environments are set up. You might have uneven terrain. You might have certain scenarios where the ground cover exists. You might have certain scenarios where the actual task you're doing, maybe you're trying to mow a cover crop, but it's the beginning of the season and the cover crop's 3 feet tall. How do you actually effectively build an autonomous solution that understands the difference between what's safe to actually touch and what's actually the responsibility of the task you're trying to solve for? You certainly have dust, you have fog, you have all kinds of different types of point rows and scenarios. You might have water or low spots that the vehicle might get stuck in or muddy conditions. And if you can't solve for all these different types of scenarios from an autonomous perspective, then the value proposition of these vehicles doing automated work is really limited, because someone's always going to have to go help these systems out. So how do we think about building an autonomy solution that allows you to handle all these different kinds of edge cases and scenarios? And that's really what Autonomy has been focused on the last few years.
Well, that's all for this week's Cover Crop Connection. I will have lots more content for you in the coming weeks from Furia USA. But until next time, I'm McCain Vogel. Back to you, Noah.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Road Warrior McCain, who's now on his way to Agritechnica in Hanover, Germany. And we'll have a report from McCain on our next episode from Germany. Another guy who's on his way to Agritechnica is Precision Ag Specialist John Fulton from The Ohio State University. And I caught up with John before he left and put him on the hot seat with this question. What's like one new product or new technology or new practice that you've seen really giving farmers a lot of bang for their buck?
Speaking here on the Eastern Corn Belt in particular, drone application has brought in that's a fairly newer tool. Obviously, it's been around here for about 4 years, but we just see an uptick of utilization of that, and I think it's helping farmers to be more efficient in some ways, more timely, in particular in terms of applications. And then we're seeing obviously some profit margins out of that, and so that's exciting. I think the other one that's pretty hot, and I think we're really at an early stage, but the last 2 years we've really see it come into commercialization as targeted spraying, and where that may fit or does it fit. I think those are some of the questions that the growers are going through right now. Obviously, I think there's some situations where, it makes pretty good sense today, and maybe not quite for other growers in terms of what practices they're using today and how they're managing their crops.
Really looking forward to seeing what John uncovers at Agritechnica next week. Now let's catch up with our Conservation Ag Operator fellow Michael Thompson out in Almena, Kansas. In our video of the week, Michael shows us how he's using Vermicompost to improve the root mass and resilience of his no-till crops.
I got a compost extractor here, and basically the last several years we've kind of done a little bit with vermicompost, which is worm poop basically, and the vermicompost we've just been treating seed with up till now. We've got a planter that's set up with liquid now, so we're going to actually start extracting. So basically we take the dry product, the dry vermicast or the compost extract, and you put it in a basket in here. You fill this tub up with water. It's actually got aeration fan on it, and the aeration actually bubbles it, and this basket has the mesh screen, and so basically all the fines are kept in the basket, and that filters out all the fines so that you don't have fines in your liquid system. And then you fire up the pump and take that off, and you put it into your nurse trailer or your planter or your drill. So we're looking at it to help with both the root systems of the plant. From just treating the seed, we've seen a lot of increased rooting mass, and that helps us in our dryland environment to get through the drier times. But also it's something that we've seen a lot in plant health, that our plants seem to be a little bit darker green, have that better color to them, seem to have been able to survive those drier times, or those times where we have those quote unquote flash droughts where we might be a few weeks without rain or a month without rain. It helps just for the plant to be a little bit healthier. So.
And that'll wrap things up for this edition of Conservation Ag Update. Shoot me an email in Newman@LesserMedia.com if you have any story ideas. And before we say goodbye, I'm being told that we have no-till legend John Bradley on the line. John, what do you like most about the National No-Tillage Conference?
Well, everybody's interested. They're there to focus, and most of them have one or two, maybe more, but at least one or two things that they want to clarify, that they want to try, they want to get other people's opinion. I think there's 2 or 3 things that make it so successful. Y'all are great leaders in it, but you merge academic and you merge that with farmers and practical and applied. It's all of it is very practical and applied. It's not, as we might say, rocket science, but they talk to other people and share. There's new products introduced. I know I'd gotten a lot of questions. The conference, the last one I went to in St. Louis, about snails and slugs. And I had my list of sessions that I wanted to go to, and went to that one and got answers. And, no farming method is perfect, but there's always seems to still be things arising in no-till as well as conventional. They're having snails and slugs and conventional also. And one of the main things that I've learned that people often thought when I did a lot of meetings that I was telling them, and I tried not to do this, but they had the attitude or impression that I was giving that everything they had done was all wrong through history. And I had to really watch that. I said, it was new and exciting, but I didn't want to ever convey that what they were doing is, quote, wrong. This is just a different way to accomplish the same thing and all the benefits that you reap.